I'm 74 years old, and for most of my life I believed time was something I could lean on. I didn't think about it much. I didn't fear it. I just assumed it would keep showing up the way it always had. Quietly. Reliably. Waiting for me to get around to what mattered. There's a moment I replay almost every night now. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was ordinary, and I didn't know it was the last time something important would quietly slip away. I used to think the big regrets came from big mistakes. I was wrong. They come from moments you don't treat as moments at all. I'm saying this now because I don't have the luxury of assumptions anymore. I sit on the edge of the bed and listen to the house settle. The silence has weight now. I thought love was something you proved by being dependable. I thought time was endless enough that you could always come back later and do it better. In my 20s, I was proud of how much I could handle. Long days didn't scare me. I wore exhaustion like a badge. I said yes automatically because saying no felt like weakness. I told myself I was building a future. Years stretched out in front of me like an open road. I believed effort would eventually turn into peace. I believed patience would be rewarded. I believed there would be a moment when everything slowed down and made sense. In my 30s, responsibilities stacked up quietly. Work followed me home. Conversations became shorter. I started checking the time while people were still talking. I didn't mean to. I just always felt pulled somewhere else. There were weekends I spent distracted, half present, already thinking about Monday. There were questions I didn't ask because I assumed I already knew the answers. Nothing felt urgent enough to stop. The thing about time is that it doesn't announce itself, leaving. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't argue. It just keeps moving, collecting the moments you thought you'd return to. You don't notice what's gone until you reach for it and feel nothing there. By my 40s, the days blended. I could tell you what I was doing, but not why I was doing it anymore. Success came, at least in the ways people measure it. I was respected. I was relied on. I was often praised for my dedication. Inside, something felt thinner. I didn't think of it as a loss. I thought of it as adulthood. This was what being responsible looked like. This was the price of stability. I didn't realize I was trading presence for progress, and that the exchange rate was unforgiving. I remember small moments more than big ones now. A conversation was cut short because I had a call to take. A walk was declined because I needed to finish something. The silence that lingered after I said I'd get to it later. Shared routines disappeared without anyone naming them. I assumed closeness would always be there, waiting when things finally calmed down. They never really did. The turning point didn't come with drama. It came with a room that felt too still. Someone I loved was suddenly fragile in a way I couldn't fix. Sitting there, listening to the sounds of breathing and machines, I felt something crack open in me. Time felt narrow, sharp. There was a chair in that room. Plastic. Light blue. One arm is slightly cracked. I sat in it every afternoon for a week. Each day, I told myself I'd say more tomorrow. Tomorrow felt safer, less heavy. On the third day, there was a pause in the conversation. Not silence. A pause. The kind where something honest is waiting to be said. I felt it. I knew it. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The next time I walked into that room, the chair was still there. The silence was not. I stood by the door longer than necessary, trying to understand how something could end without an ending. No final argument, no dramatic goodbye. Just a moment I postponed until it disappeared. That was when time stopped feeling generous. I wanted to rewind, not decades, just a little. I wanted one more ordinary afternoon, one more chance to listen without looking at the clock. Some things cannot be repaired, not because you didn't care enough, but because you waited too long. Words lose their shape when spoken late. Apologies land differently when the moment has passed. Presence can't be recreated once it's been replaced too many times. There are things you can apologize for, and then there are things you simply live with. You can't return to a moment you chose comfort over honesty. You can't explain yourself to someone who no longer needs explanations. You can't rebuild closeness once too many silences have done the talking for you. What's gone isn't just the person or the moment. It's the version of yourself that might have shown up differently. That version never got the chance. Now, at 74, I have more hours in the day than I ever did before. That's the quiet cruelty of it. The busyness is gone, but so are many of the people and moments I meant to return to. What's left is reflection and the honesty that comes with it. I don't hate my younger self. He wasn't careless. He was doing what he thought was right. He just believed there would always be more time to make things whole. I don't believe in instructions anymore. I can only share what it feels like to reach this age and see the pattern clearly. Waiting feels safe. Delay feels harmless. But time doesn't reward good intentions. It moves forward without comment, and it keeps what you give it. What you postpone doesn't stay still. There's a loneliness that comes from being remembered as capable instead of present, from being useful instead of known. I didn't fail at life. I just misunderstood what mattered most while I still had choices. What remains now is acceptance, not peace exactly, just clarity. I see the trades I made. I know which ones I can't undo. The time I have left is enough to tell the truth, and not enough to pretend anymore. I don't want you to rush after hearing this. Rushing is what taught me this lesson in the first place. I just want you to notice how often you tell yourself, "Not now." How often do you delay the small human things because they don't feel urgent? Urgent is a word we use to protect our schedules, not our lives. If this meant something to you, sit with it for a moment. You don't need to rush. Just don't assume you'll come back to it later. I thought I had time. I was wrong. In old age, memories surface in unexpected ways. A smell can pull me back 50 years. A sound can reopen a room I thought was gone. These memories don't come as lessons. They arrive as reminders of how ordinary life was while it was happening and how extraordinary it looks once it's over. I used to believe that important moments announced themselves, that you would feel them coming, that you would know when something needed your full attention. That belief made it easy to stay distracted. I didn't mean any harm, I just didn't realize how visible absence can be even when someone is sitting right in front of you. As years passed, people adjusted. They stopped asking as much. They learned not to expect too much time from me. I mistook that adjustment for understanding. I didn't see it for what it was, a quiet pulling back to protect themselves from disappointment. They just adapt, and you don't notice until the distance feels permanent. I often think about how much energy I spent preparing for the future. I was always arriving somewhere else, never fully where I was. When people talk about regrets, they often imagine dramatic mistakes. I didn't have those. My regrets are quiet. They live in unsent messages, in conversations that stayed practical when they could have been honest, in moments when listening would have mattered more than solving anything. Age strips away excuses. You can't hide behind urgency forever. Eventually, the calendar catches up with you, and you realize that later was never a guarantee. It was just a story you told yourself to make today easier. Light on a wall. That was the trade I struggled to make. I also wish I had known that people don't need perfection. They need attention. They need to feel seen. They need to know they matter in the moment, not in the future you promised them. Growing older has taught me that being remembered is not the same as being missed. You can be respected and still feel absent from the stories people tell about their lives. The world doesn't slow down when you're ready to reflect. It keeps moving, indifferent to your understanding. Gratitude and sorrow can exist together. I am grateful for what I had and sorrowful for what I overlooked. Both feelings are true. Neither cancels the other. If I sound calm now, it's not because this was easy to accept. It's because resistance no longer helps. At this stage, honesty is lighter than denial. I don't know how much time I have left. None of us does. But the margin is smaller now. That knowledge changes the texture of each day. It makes silence louder. It makes connection precious in a way I once postponed. Notice who waits for you without saying so. Life doesn't ask for grand gestures. It asks for presence while it's happening. I learned that too late to recover everything, but not too late to say it out loud. I believed time would always be there. I built my life around that belief. Now I know time was never mine to count on. I can remember it without trying to rewrite it. That alone took years. I no longer measure days by productivity. I measure them by moments of clarity. A conversation that feels honest. A silence that feels shared. I would simply ask him to notice. To notice when he is rushing away from something meaningful. To notice when later becomes a habit. To notice how often he assumes there will be another chance. Life is not cruel. It is precise. It gives you exactly what you engage with. I engaged with the future, and now I live with the memories. That is not a punishment. It is a consequence. I am 74 years old, and I finally understand that time was never something I owned. It was something I was meant to be present for, knowing that now doesn't change the past, but it shapes how I sit with it. I don't share this to be remembered. I share it because honesty feels lighter than silence. If these words stay with you, let them do so quietly. Let them surface when you're choosing where to place your attention. That would be enough for me now. I have no more lessons, only a lived truth offered gently, without expectation. Before time ends quietly here,